in South Korea. Let's keep the frame on air. Donald Trump, of course, there speaking at the APEC Summit in South Korea. He's, of course, addressing the business leaders who are gathered over there, highlighting once again his America First pitch. He's spoken about semiconductors. He's spoken about increasing electricity capacity. He's also spoken about shipbuilding, artificial intelligence, augmenting the production of steel. He's spoken about America's allies as well, including South Korea and Japan. Remember, he's wrapped up his visit in Tokyo yesterday itself. There were some key deals inked. Nearly 550 billion US dollars are slated to be invested in the United States from Japan. Trump, along with his America First speech, has also emphasized that when America thrives, its alliances also thrives, and the Indo-Pacific thrives as well. He's called, in fact, South Korea one of the few places with enduring democracy. He's thanked, in fact, President Myung for what he calls an important meeting. Apart from this, we all do know that there's another very crucial bilateral meeting on the cards, which will take place tomorrow. That is with the President of China, Xi Jinping. There are tensions simmering between the United States of America and China as far as Trump's tariff policies are concerned, the restrictions on rare earths imposed by China, the high port fees, reciprocal action, back and forth is going on. Yes, communication channels are open. We've recently seen a conversation between Wang Yi and Marco Rubio as well. But all in all, this is a very important summit, and the two leaders, Trump and Xi, are going to be sitting down tomorrow at the sidelines of the APEC in Yeongju to discuss what exactly is transpiring. With me on the broadcast is Mr. Spencer Critchley. He's a communication strategist joining us from California. Also with me is Dr. Sanjay Kumar, journalist at the Korea Herald, joining us from Busan. I'd like to go across to Mr. Critchley first. Once again, in a similar fashion to all his speeches outside America, Donald Trump has once again touted his America First policy. He slammed the previous administration, the Biden administration. He stated that his administration has fast-tracked permits for private companies as far as ensuring that their operations are conducted seamlessly is concerned. He's spoken about his executive orders. He's also claimed, interestingly, that jobs have risen for American-born people. Prices are down, mortgages are down to record levels as well. He's spoken about the interest rates, and at the same time, he's called the governor, the Federal Reserve governor, incompetent. What are your takeaways from his speech?
Well, it's unfortunately an all too predictable Donald Trump performance. A great deal of what he was saying there was the opposite of the truth, which is just absolutely commonplace for him, talking about prices being down when they're up and employment being up when it's down, for example. And the way he describes slashing regulations sounds like it might be good if you're a fan of government efficiency, and most people are. But in fact, what he's been doing is slashing regulations and even slashing law enforcement investigations for his friends at giant corporations. So he's actually eliminated the function in the U.S. Justice Department to pursue investigations of white-collar crime, for example. And as far as America First goes, unfortunately, as we heard in that speech, it turns out to be Trump first. It's really a tedious recitation of his claimed accomplishments, most of which, as I say, are false.
Indeed, and he's spoken about, as I mentioned earlier, reducing the interest rates. He's spoken about the U.S. stock markets as well. We do know that economists are in fact expressing concerns about a sort of double whammy impacting the United States very, very soon, especially if the government shutdown continues. The tariff policies have resulted in increased prices for consumers at the base levels. And the Fed has warned of a recession if the Democrats and Republicans don't really get back onto the table to sort of resolve their differences. So it's likely that the interest rates will be reduced, something that Donald Trump has been wanting for a while.
Yes, ironically, the interest rates are likely to be reduced because the economy is suffering because of Trump's tariff policies and other moves. So he was demanding that the Federal Reserve reduce interest rates when the economy was doing well, which of course is absolutely counterindicated and it would be an inflationary move. The reason he wants interest rates to be reduced is to juice the economy artificially, and he does not care about the long-term inflationary effects. He just wants the short-term hit of, as I say, juicing the economy with artificially low interest rates. But by pursuing these destructive economic policies, he actually is causing the economy to slow down to the point where raising interest rates becomes reasonable.
Interestingly, there's a message that Donald Trump put out just a while back on Truth Social. He stated, for those that are asking, we didn't come to South Korea to see Canada, thereby ruling out any sort of murmurs as far as a bilateral with Carney is concerned. Where do you think US-Canada ties are heading? Because Canada, of course, is an indispensable partner, not just a neighbor of the United States of America, but a trade partner as well.
You know, I often wish that I could come up with something positive to say about President Trump with pretty much any other president, whether they're somebody I agree with or not. You can find some positive things to say about them, but the problem with Trump is that his character flaws are so absolutely fundamental that is the story with him. That is the major problem. This fight with Canada is an example. The reason that he has re-escalated it is that he saw an ad run by the Canadian province of Ontario that made him personally angry. And so he added new 10% tariffs on one of our closest trading partners and one of our strongest allies of very long standing. It's obviously unfair to Canada, but it's incredibly self-destructive for the United States, and he's doing it because his feelings were hurt, essentially. This ad featured former President Ronald Reagan saying that he hated tariffs because of exactly what we see them doing with Trump imposing them. They actually harm not only our trading partners, but also harm the United States through things like higher prices and damaged trade relationships and alliances. Trump got upset, slapped these new tariffs on Canada, and halted all trade discussions with them, again, because he was personally upset, which should be just utterly unthinkable in an American president, but it's all too predictable. And then he claimed that this was a false attribution to Reagan, that Reagan never said those things, and maybe it was done by AI, and that Reagan actually loved tariffs. Once again, that is 100% the opposite of the truth.
Indeed, and my very last question to you, I wanted to understand, what are your expectations from the Trump-Xi meeting lined up tomorrow?
I imagine it'll be largely performative, as most of these trade meetings have been. Trump loves these gestures, and he loves to be photographed signing documents and then holding up the document to show off his beautiful signature. Apparently is the highlight of the event for him. With the China relationship, you know, there's plenty for the United States to want to negotiate with China over. It's not like China has behaved perfectly in its dealings with the United States and with other international partners. But with Trump, the approach seems to be to start a fire like an arsonist and then show up and pretend to be the fire department to put it out. So he puts these enormous tariffs on China, causes them to retaliate, which once again not only harms China but harms the United States, and then comes in to negotiate what are just unimaginably high tariffs on the order of 150%, down to something that now somehow seems reasonable, like 10 to 30%, which is still incredibly high by historic standards, recent historic standards, when global tariffs were more on the order of 1 or 2%.
All right, Mr. Critchley, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your perspective, your analysis with us. I'd also like to rope in Dr. Sanjay Kumar, journalist from the Korea Herald, joining us from Busan. You're, of course, at the center of all of these high-octane developments that are taking place in South Korea. At the outset, I wanted to understand from you, how is the South Korean administration viewing what Donald Trump is saying as far as cooperation regarding shipbuilding is concerned? There's a fresh announcement by Amazon as well, pledging $5 billion in data center investment in South Korea.
Yes, well, from South Korean perspective, the government here wants to bridge the advanced economies and the emerging economies, and this Jeongju's APEC Summit is a good platform to bridge those gaps, and that is why the hopes are high, stakes are high from South Korean government, and President Trump is also looks optimistic, not just from the perspective of Korea, but also to bridge different gaps, including talk with Chinese President Xi and the other major economies. So that is why, from South Korean perspective, it is really important. And there is a geopolitical angle as well, because this part of the world, this inter-Korean relations are always disturbed because of the North Korea and Kim Jong Un. So President Trump just recently he also said that he would love to meet Kim if he wants, but nothing has been positive so far. But from South Korean perspective, it should be seen as a good gesture from President Trump, because this shows how he looks interested in engaging the North in talks. So, although it's a multilateral platform, but many bilaterals are going to happen, and I'm sure that something concrete is going to be achieved from South Korean perspective.
Speaking of something concrete, Donald Trump has stated that a trade deal with South Korea will be finalized very, very soon. But we've recently also, in fact, seen that the administration is a little apprehensive as Trump is seeking $350 billion in investments from Seoul in the United States of America. We'd earlier, in fact, seen President Lee Jae-myung himself express the fact that that would require some sort of currency swap to take place as well. So what are the concerns that the administration has at this point?
Well, when President Lee and President Trump met in August, they agreed to force the things in positive way. But that time, the items and details were not finalized, and because of that, many kind of disagreements have are underlying. But from South Korean perspective, they have been approaching the U.S. administration, and talks had been ongoing. They are already negotiating. But yes, this $350 billion investment remains, there are some confusions over it. Like US government has their own priorities, and South Korean government has their own. And there is a currency swap issue as well. But looks like it is heading towards a positive direction. And especially South Korean ambassador to US, Kang Kyung-hwa, she is also playing a key role in facilitating that dialogue. And even the trade ministry officials from South Korea is also trying their best to reach a conclusion. So this APEC summit would be a kind of momentum in once again meeting. We should not forget that that time President Lee said that Trump is a peacemaker, but he would like to play a role of pacemaker. And that is why South Korean government is set to offer President Trump the highest national honor, the Order of Mugunghwa also. So I think there is a lot of positivities, and these things spin a lot of hopes of optimism. And this will, in long run, I think, can play a role in actualizing the South Korea's current government's pragmatic diplomacy. Although it is a test, but especially next tomorrow when President Trump will meet President Xi of China, definitely many things can be said.
Indeed. Speaking of China, Donald Trump has spoken also about the Indo-Pacific at large. We do know that he just, as I mentioned earlier, wrapped up a visit to Japan as well. So the US is eyeing the larger security matrix in the Indo-Pacific. But South Korea cannot ignore geography. What are your expectations from the Trump-Xi meeting? Because as we know it, South Korea is caught in a very delicate position considering its close proximity to China as well as its close alliance with the United States.
Yeah, it is a difficult time for South Korea in making decisions over Indo-Pacific. But as you know, US-ROK relations remain ironclad, and that is why when there will be discussions on this front, definitely South Korea is going to be in the Indo-Pacific. They are in the Indo-Pacific, and many exercises have been happening too. And this time, many other countries who are, like-minded countries who are also in this APEC such as South Korea and US, and including other countries, they are definitely going to talk in a positive way, and they would not try. I mean, the South Korea would not try to offend China in such aspect, and without offending China, they would try their best to somehow bridge those things and forge with Indo-Pacific, because South Korea is not negative about it. South Korea is part of Indo-Pacific. They are passive because of the turbulent neighborhood. So that is the concern, and that concern, I think South Korea is well aware. It is a diplomatic test drive, but President Lee looks very formed and very balanced right now, and that is why the South Korean government is trying to set some kind of agenda in a positive direction with geoeconomics in the center.
Absolutely. Speaking of the turbulent neighborhood, there's another very crucial update coming in from Seoul at this point. I request you to stay on with us as we track this. We're now learning that Donald Trump has stated that he expects to meet